Good afternoon and welcome to the end of year edition of The Pulse. We're coming to you live from our studios here at Kokomlemle in Accra. We're also live on DSTV channel 421 and Go TV channel 125 and around the world on myjoyonline.com. It's the final day of 2025 and just 7 days shy of 1 year since President John Mahama returned to office. Before assuming power, he made bold promises, chief among them the 24-hour economy, CD Stabilization and the Oral Initiative. With the year drawing to a close, how should his performance be graded in economic management, the fight against Galamsey, governance, corruption, use of parliamentary majority, infrastructure delivery, and implementation of the 24-hour economy policy? And this afternoon, we've assembled some of the nation's finest minds to help us measure that performance. I am Amisi Nyamiche Thompson. Co-hosting with me are
Mustafa Gbande is my name, the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC and a presidential staffer. And
I'm Dr. Amoakoh, the Deputy Spokesperson for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
And coming up this afternoon, Regional Security Council shuts down the whole Central Mosque for 2 weeks, starting amid rising tensions over the regional chief imam position. We bring you the details in here directly from the regional minister.
In less than 24 hours, the COVID-19 levy will be officially scrapped, reducing the effective VAT rate from 21.9% to 20%, even as water and electricity tariffs rise by 15.92% and 9.86% respectively. COVID-19 will tell you about the major government policies that kick in from January 1st and what to expect for the 2026 year.
And you will be hearing more from Mustafa Gbande. Well, fresh global info analytics data reveals Haruna and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia led latest flag bearer polls among candidates in the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress. We'll tell you how the other candidates are faring in the race.
New study has revealed that cassava grown on reclaimed mining lands contains unsafe levels of cyanide and lead, raising concerns that staples such as fufu, konkonte, and gari from such fields could be compromised with the possibility of causing cancer and neurological diseases.
Whilst it could be boiled and pounded into fufu, or grated into powder for konkonte, or fried into gari, consumers may not be escaping the ripple effect of contaminated cassavas.
And later in the bulletin, we put the spotlight on the repealed emission levy as research suggests it never worked in the year it was in force.
Pipe emissions. By 2018, Accra's Central Business District.
Well, these and more stories coming up here with us on The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Defendral Cough Expectorant. Defendral Breathe Easy, Feel Better. Please stay for details. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us here on The Pulse. It's a good time to introduce our guests. Joining us via Zoom for this crucial 2025 assessment are Prof. Baffour Agyeman-Duah, governance expert. Edem Senanu is an anti-corruption campaigner. Felix Cudjoe is the chief government spokesperson. Franklin Cudjoe, President IMANI Africa. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on The Pulse.
Let us begin with how Ghana has fared in 2025. Government spokesperson Felix Cudjoe has been outlining key achievements of the Mahama administration on the Super Morning Show.
President Mahama's work was cut out with him the moment he won the 2024 elections. Because before that election, everybody knew what Ghana's biggest problems were. And the biggest amongst them was the Ghanaian economy. There were issues that threatened the energy sector. The social sector, i.e. education, health, and what have you, also had significant challenges. For many years, it had been mismanaged and run in a way that tended to create more problems for the people of Ghana. Infrastructure was also a major issue. There were many complaints from the people of Ghana about the state of infrastructure, especially regarding roads and other such critical services. So any assessment of President Mahama's performance, in my view, must be held within this particular context, in addition, of course, to any other metrics that may be used. If you take the economy, for instance, which was far and away the biggest problem that Ghanaians faced, at least in the last 4 years preceding the election, you find that all the critical indicators were in disarray. We had a huge debt problem, I beg your pardon, which had led between 2022 and 2023 to debt defaults. And Cudjoe, if you want to assess the performance of any economy, there can be no graver indicator than the failure of a country to pay its debts. The moment that happens, you know that that economy is in complete shambles. And in the last 40 years or so, nothing of the sort has happened. So you can say that President Mahama inherited the worst possible economic situation in Ghana's recent history, and that was superintended by the MPP. They could not pay our debts because they mismanaged the economy and simply did not have the money to pay our debts. Because another problem that had bedeviled us, admittedly, it's a perennial problem, but it had gotten to unprecedented levels, and that was the depreciation of the cedi. At some point between July 2022 and November of that same year, the cedi moved from 6 cedis and reached 17 cedis at a point. It was perhaps the most disastrous period in Ghana's contemporary economic management history. Businesses suffered. Many of them closed down. Many more could not make ends meet. And this translated into unprecedented suffering for the people of Ghana. The cost of living rose through the roof. And at a point, inflation hovered around 54%. And you had situations where you could go to the market in the morning and buy an item for a certain price and come back later in the day and find that the price has shot up. Although there is a Ghana Statistical Service report which said that sometime in 2023 or so, because of the direct effects of the economic shambles that the MPP supervised, up to 8.5 million Ghanaians went to bed at some point in that year without food. And that is nearly a quarter of our population. Unemployment was very high. At a point, it stood at 14%. In absolute terms, we're talking around 2 million Ghanaian youth who were without jobs. If you come to education, for instance, the education sector suffered. Despite all the hoopla and noise about free SHS, feeding became a problem. Priorities were misplaced. They were spending money printing exam papers at a time when for several academic or several terms in the academic year, they could not provide textbooks after they themselves had reviewed the educational curriculum. The NHIS was perennially in debt, and service providers were constantly complaining. School feeding caterers were constantly on the neck of government, and they used to march every now and then to the offices of the Baffour Store Company to demand payment. The District Assembly's Common Fund suffered severely. The releases were simply not coming, and so they were hamstrung. And I know, when you go to AAK, where I am MP, I'm also an official member of the District Assembly, so I know. The whole of last year, only a paltry 298,000 Ghana cedis, less than 300,000 Ghana cedis, was given to that assembly.
Speaking on the same program, Felix Kwakye also dismissed claims that the economic turnaround is due to favorable global conditions rather than deliberate policy choices, insisting that the gains are rooted in fiscal discipline.
he has appointed the right people to helm economic management. I mean, forget about all the noise that the MPP used to make about the supposed prowess of the economic management team. We have not had to make such noise. But President Mahama appointed the right people. He appointed Ato Forson as finance minister, appointed Dr. Esiama as governor of the Bank of Ghana, and put others in place to assist them in their work. What are the outcomes? Although today, the depreciation of the cedi, which is one of the biggest problems of this economy, has been tamed. And for the first time, at least since redenomination, or in fact, even if you go further to the beginning of the Fourth Republic, we've had a situation where in a year, the cedi has appreciated significantly against the dollar and other trading currencies. In fact, the report is that by the close of this year, the cedi would have appreciated by between 24 to 25% against the US dollar. This did not happen under the NPP. And the result of that, Cudjoe, is that because our economy is largely import dependent, now let me stress that import dependency is not something that we should encourage. We have to become more export oriented. That perhaps is the most sustainable way of ensuring that our currency remains permanently strong. But moving from import dependency to export orientation will take a bit of time. In between that time, the people of Ghana cannot continue to endure hardships because of rapid depreciation of the currency. So any government that is elected must have it at the back of its mind to do something about the cedi. In fact, it was Dr. Bawumia of the NPP who singled out the exchange rate as the single most important indicator of effective economic management. When he said that if the fundamentals of the economy are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. He meant, and in fact, in that same lecture, he actually said the exchange rate is the single most important indicator. It is in that 2024 speech. So I doubt if the MPP today and the critics who like to join them to say things would dispute that today. Now that the exchange rate has proven to be one of the most important factors that underpins the cost of living. And the result of the appreciation of the cedi is that the prices of items have reduced. You could argue that perhaps the reduction should be steeper compared to the rate of appreciation of the cedi. That is fair comment. But there's no dispute about reduction in prices. At the very least, the price of fuel, as we met it at the beginning of this year, is much lower now. There are filling stations that sell a liter of petrol.
Well, that was Felix Kwachio-Fosu on the Super Morning Show earlier this morning. Well, Ranking Member on Parliament's Economy and Development Committee, Cudjoe says while the government has started well on managing the economy, it has not been transparent enough about its cedi stabilization strategy. He raises concerns about sustainability and cost.
To say that this government has started well on the economic management front. Okay. The challenges that we have raised, first of all, are to do with issues, for example, like candor. How candid are they being in the methods they are using? And I think the last time I was in your studio, I had an opportunity to delve into full detail about it. On the currency side, for example, it's obvious that at the beginning, the government did not want to tell the truth about what they were doing. You recall when we started making the argument that because we were clear on the strategy they were using, we thought that we had a responsibility to raise cautions about the sustainability of that strategy. Initially, they were of the view that they should hide that fact. And so you recall the governor telling us that there was no, whether they call it intervention or intermediation, the governor literally denying it, the president denying it. I think it was you or one of your colleagues who later, after the government had been literally forced to suspend the intervention and put in place a framework. One of your colleagues also is the one who asked the president at the press conference. And that was the first time the president admitted to the method that was being used, which we had earlier raised that, listen, we understand what is going on. If we're able to stabilize or maybe achieve some mild appreciation, of course, cost of living is very important to the people of Ghana, and so that is helpful to everybody. But if the methods we are using are methods that we should take a second look at, let's be candid first of all and examine those methods so that we also look at it on the question of sustainability.
So, Professor of Economics at the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Frimpong-Boateng, believes measures such as budget cuts, reduced borrowing, described as shock therapy, and amendments to the Public Financial Management Act have driven improvements in the key economic indicators within the administration's first year.
Then you look at another strategy they introduced. They called it shock therapy, essentially reducing our gross financing needs, which would imply that government will borrow less from the market. That immediately caused interest rates to come down, especially money market rates. Money market rate, because that was where government was operating, especially in the short end of the yield curve, money market. So the money market rates came down significantly. The results of that shock therapy, you will see it in the budget, where we had reduced interest payments in excess of 8 billion cedis. Now that drop in the treasury bill or money market rate also caused the Ghana reference rate to also track down a bit, because the calculation of the Ghana reference rate revolves largely around three rate corridors. The policy rate of Bank of Ghana, the interbank rate that mirrors the policy rate, and then the treasury bill rate where government has a role to play. So you can see that. So there's a pass-through of the effect of the shock therapy and then the fiscal recalibration to consumers of credit in terms of lower cost of borrowing. You cannot run away from that. The Ghana reference rate could have come down much faster than what it is, but simply because the policy rate was a bit high and it failed to track. We'll talk about the details maybe with time. Then the third one was the strengthening of the fiscal regime. They amended the Public Financial Management Act, actually integrated the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and which the MPP passed, I think, 2018 or so. Now we had debt limit rules enshrined in the Public Financial Management Act. We had undertaken to do primary balance on surplus basis of 1.5% of GDP, consistent with the IMF program. If you look at the deficit we did in 2024, which essentially derailed the IMF program objectives, and the fact that the government used just 1 year budget, 2025 budget, to restore the fiscal outlook consistent with the IMF program, I think that again is commendable. The steep expenditure cap and all of that. Then the other bit that I think that has also worked is the fact that there is complementarity in terms of the coordination from the fiscal side and the monetary side. So you see that Bank of Ghana also followed quickly with monetary tightening, okay, and they scaled up essentially the sterilization by mopping up billions of cedis out of the market.
Well, this is a good time to bring in our panelist for a broader assessment since January 7, 2025. And I'll start with you, Professor Baffour Agyeman-Duah. From where you sit, I mean, you've engaged in several conversations on governance. Where do you sit? Has government improved since President Mahama assumed office, or have things improved in your view? Kindly unmute and speak to us.
Yes, I was saying that's an easy question. There's no doubt that things have changed. There's vast improvement in the environment of the country, economically and politically. So in the sense of governance, both of our resources and our politics, certainly there's a difference. In fact, when you talk to ordinary people, I'm going to avoid these academic jargons. Just talk to ordinary people, the market people, the taxi drivers, people on the streets. All of them will tell you, and I've done that in my own little way, that there's a great sense of relief on the part of people, which means that the government has indeed introduced some measures that have mitigate the problems or the hardships, so to speak, that people used to complain about. And I think it's real. Of course, people can argue the global environment is favorable. Yes, the global environment is always part of a government's management strategy. So if the oil price on the global markets has dropped and subsequently we're seeing lower prices at the gas stations, if the gold price has achieved its highest levels ever in decades, selling at 4,400 per ounce, that's to our favor. That's Ghanaians, and the government in power is the Mahama administration. So they have to take that into account. So all I'm saying is that, yes, if you ask me, I will say, sure, qualitatively, people seem to have a sense of difference in their lives, and things are available. It doesn't mean everything is fine. Some people may question the methods, as I've heard my good friends arguing, but the fact is that these methods were available for all governments. If some governments choose to use different methods and therefore put people's lives in hardship, that is the choice they make. If this government is clever enough to know that the central bank can work with the finance ministry and other agencies to really bring down inflation and all, that's also a method that is working for them. So besides the issue of sustainability and all, we all know that if tomorrow, for instance, the oil price shoots up to 75 or so, $78 per barrel, and the gold price drops, and the gold price comes down, certainly this government will face some severe hardships. But until then, I think let's praise this government for being able to sustain us to this point.
Well, Prof, I would like to know from you, it's just a little into about a year of President Mahama's administration. What is the lowest point for you or your biggest disappointment within this period?
Wow. Frankly, I cannot pinpoint anything I would say is my biggest disappointment. It doesn't mean that they have performed magically. No, I'm not saying that. But so far as the ordinary people are concerned, and life for all of us seem to have break down in terms of cost and all, I think they've done well. So if you ask me what the lowest point, perhaps I will say, and I'm very frank about this, the way and manner the government, the president handled the removal of the Chief Justice, personally, I do not like it, and I've made my point clear many times. But of course, he followed the rules, he followed the constitutional processes. But if I were him, I would have paused it and use my own discretion in making certain moves on that. Perhaps if you ask me, that is the only one I can cite. Other than that, I think the president has done very well in his first year.
Right, Professor Baffour, we're grateful. Let me bring in Mustafa Gbande at this moment.
At this time, let me bring in the Deputy General Secretary of Agenda 38, Haruna Mohammed. Haruna, from your perspective, do you agree that the President Mahama has performed excellently across virtually all sectors? Haruna, are you there?
I would like to see good. Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
I was asking. Did you get a question, Haruna? Haruna Mohammed. Haruna Mohammed, are you there?
Yes, Mustafa.
I'm saying, do you agree that President Mahama has performed excellently across virtually all sectors?
Hello?
Yes.
I say thank you very much for me joining this particular very important program. First and foremost, there is nothing like Agenda 38. When you get such a platform, you don't use it as pure propaganda. You know very well that in Ghana, we don't have anything called Agenda 38. Again, with regards to your question specifically, if you ask me the performance of President Mahama, listening to all the presentations and what police party has just enumerated, I don't think that President Mahama deserves any applause with regards to what he has done in terms of how he handled the economy, how he handled the health sector, how he handled the education sector, how he's handling the media, how he's handling the civil society, and also the entirety of the governor.
Can I ask a follow-up?
First and foremost, we check the educations today. The college instead of 3 times a day. So what is the difficulty? What again have they also not told us? You are telling us that you have been able to manage the exchange rate. You have also failed to tell us that you injected over $10.1 billion into the economy to be able to boost yourself. Last year, if a dollar was high, and today a dollar is down, has the rent changed? Has the cost of items changed? Has the farmer been able to get a reduced cost of inputs? Has the cost of buying a car changed? Has anything in the country changed in terms of the change or the stability of the city or the dollar? So if you say that Vice President Mahama had made significant analysis of that matter, does the fundamentals still hold? Yes. If you use a weak fundamental to hold the cedi and the currency, then it also expose you by also making the increment and skyrocketing
give us the opportunity
of items in the market. And as I speak to you, I'm in the farm, and I can tell you that, the farmer today cannot laugh. And again, if you also look at the debt situation in terms of how the debt is being managed, everybody will tell you, Atu doesn't pay. And I cannot see how you want to arrogate the successes of what Akufo-Addo did in terms of the debt restructuring to be able to say that it is the NDC that has been able to do that. Again, you go to the education sector. They promise us certain numerous activities that they want to do. They have not been able to do it. He's talking about infrastructure. Tell me one single road that the NDC has been able to complete. They have not been able to do that. So he's talking about infrastructure. What has he done? All the Pokwasi road and all that they have been inspecting and all the projects that they are putting and the big push which has not yet been done, it's a project that we started our own. That is under the MPP. Again, he's talking about jobs. We created over 2.3 million when we came into government. And you are talking about jobs. How many jobs have they created?
Haruna, just before you go,
in the country who were duly employed.
Haruna, just before you go, let me ask, do you not think that the government even deserves some applause for the performance of the cedi as against the dollar?
Performance. The cedi has not been performance. The cedi has been stayed his growth by injecting 10.1 billion, which is more than what we went for the IMANI. So the cedi has just been stayed his growth by injecting. Not even
from 17 to 11.
We didn't hand 17 to you. So if you are going to quote, you need to quote what we handed to you. So even if 17 is there, when there was 17, how much was the input to the farmer? How much was fertilizer? How much was they selling soybean? How much was maize? How much was the farmer getting with that particular rate? It tells you are talking about import-export. If your FDI has to work, you need to be able to stabilize the cedi correctly, not to inject chemicals into the cedi to hold the growth of the cedi.
Thank you.
By making sure that the Ghanaian is impoverished and debt levels within the Ghanaian system is increased. So
thank you so much, Haruna, for your time.
Thank you, Gbande. Let me bring in Edem Senanu. What is your assessment of the general governance of our country since January 7, 2025?
Thank you. And indeed, I think that there has been quite remarkable progress. Whether you look at it economically or whether you look at it from a governance perspective, the appetite for discussing things related to, for example, corruption, there was absolutely very little for that by the time we got into the tail end of 2024. But this government has been willing to engage around the issues of corruption. In mid-year, we had to do a country review of Ghana from the AU level. The government facilitated. I remember the final conference. Typically, in most countries, we have a stakeholder engagement of about 100, 150. This government set a new high for us when they invited almost 800 persons, all chief executives on, that was a holiday, it was a Friday. The president's message was, I'm not going to tolerate, corruption. And I mean, recently, even the president's posture on the fact that the office of the special prosecutor is important, and let's not begin to talk about, collapsing what we all believe is important to our progress. So I think that there's been substantive progress, and the posture of our president has been something that is comforting in terms of us taking issues of governance seriously.
Okay, thank you, Edem. So my last question will be that do you think we actually have tangibles to show for the first year of the Mahama administration when it comes to the fight against corruption?
Well, I'll say I think so. We've had the president who's talked about the need for specialized courts, something he's endorsed. He's talked about giving more support to the various anti-corruption institutions. Some of us have been part of a new anti-corruption, we call it the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Strategy, where we've appreciated the fact that ethics has been something missing in the equation. I think it should be launched by next month. So the last 6 to 8 months has been spent on that. So there are things that are ongoing, maybe not yet fully in the public domain, that let us know that there's a serious effort to relook at what has gone wrong and to tackle it. And from that perspective, I think that we are on track if it gets to implementation, and we will have the political will to execute as seriously as we have worked at developing strategy.
Well, I'll bring in now Franklin Cudjoe of IMANI Africa into the conversation at this point. Franklin, I'll also like to hear from you, your assessment. We've heard from Professor Baffour Agyeman-Duah, who says his low point really is the removal of the Chief Justice. Also, Cudjoe earlier has criticized or questioned the strategy for sustaining or ensuring that the cedi is, the exchange rate is at a low point at this time of the President Mahama administration. In your view, what really is the high point and low point for you in this administration?
Good evening, my good friends. First of all, I think that the conversations about the, should I call it higher points or lower points, it's useful, but I like to, as a good friend, Professor Baffour said, maybe let's leave all these big technologies and let's just focus, right? I mean, what did President Mahama promise to do when it comes to the number of ministers that we have, right? The fact that he would manage to reduce the ministers from about 126 to about 16, for me, actually 58 up until recently that he added the 2 or so. That keeping faith with the people, with the voters, is for me number one satisfaction that I so much appreciate, because you see, once you're able to do that, once he's able to do that, in fact, we've calculated that he's going to save this country almost 3 billion Ghana cedis by the end of his tenure. If we calculated also the the emolument that all these people were supposed to receive, right? So keeping faith with some of the things he said he was going to do, for me, it's the number one thing for me, right? So number of ministers. He said I was going to revive Thor. In fact, indeed, about 4 weeks ago, the current MD of Thor invited me to come and just going to have a chat and see what is happening at Thor and see what he's doing, right? And I was amazed. I thought this guy was going for some huge loans to come and revive Thor. It turns out that he actually used internally generated funds of a moribund entity, right? A moribund. Thor was virtually dead, if you take it that way. Turned it around, did some lala, managed to get some small millions, and then used that same money to turn the whole thing around. I mean, to get to fix all these, the other machines and the refinery. I was blown away. In fact, to think that the workers themselves were the ones testifying to the efficient management of this gentleman, I knew very well that President Mahama's promise to revive Thor was going to come true. And lo and behold, I think 3 days, was it 3 days or 4 days ago, we were told that Thor is now operating, right? So I remember telling come back to the MD that, look, there's one thing Ghanaians want, a good name and a good legacy. If you are able to manage this thing, and virtually, in fact, make sure you don't give it to you don't sell products to people who are not able to pay. But if you're able to manage this stuff, your name will be etched in gold. If you're able to manage in such a way that people will say, okay, look, President Mahama's time, he virtually revived an organization that was going to be sold for scrap, right? Don't forget the NPP. Anado and his Keith and King just wanted to sell this thing for themselves about 22 million series or $22 million. I remember we got involved, made sure we worked with the workers' union there, and got the OSP involved and stopped that process. So President Mahama managing to revive Thor, again, promise kept, promise delivered.
Right, thank you, Franklin. I'll come back to you. Let me talk to Prof now. Professor Baffour Agyeman-Duah, looking at how the corruption fight has been, I mean, the opposition, NPP, has always complained about being targeted by this administration. In your view, looking at the period so far, what will you say the corruption fight has been?
Frankly, if this government had not so-called quote and unquote targeted some people, I would have been shocked. Because prior to coming to power, they indicated their strong stance on corruption. Also, in the past years, there have been blatant cases of corruption and theft, state theft. So it was obvious that the whole country was ready, prepared to support any measures that will curb corruption. So I don't see it as targeted. Look, over the years, government after government, they do promise to fight corruption, but we have not been able to see concrete evidence of success. You see, Ghana, we have to understand ourselves, culturally and parasocially, there are ways of mitigating serious crime in this country by simply appealing to, on the basis of certain sentiments. Even now, as I speak, I know there have been people whispering the ears of the president to go easy on certain individuals whose names have popped up for corruption trials and all. But we want to begin to set the example that public officials cannot just go into the office and plunder the nation. So for me, frankly, some of these people involved are people I know. I don't know whether I should say they are friends or something, but they know me, I know. But I think the nation has to begin to set an example. Now, if you ask me whether President Mahama has been doing well on that, it's also because, well, people are very anxious to see people being tried and jailed and all. But I also believe, as lawyers will tell us, the wheels of justice, unfortunately, very unfortunately, grinds very, very slowly. So perhaps the Attorney General, who seems to be at the forefront of this, can make good on some of the cases he has announced to the nation. And if the OSP can also make good on some of the cases announced to the nation, then we can begin to say that, look, we are beginning to see some concrete measures, concrete achievements in that area. But as I speak, the president has been very clear, no doubt, he's committed to fighting it. But for the general population, we are yet to see concrete evidence of achievement in that area.
But what would you say about the procedure? I mean, issues about huge bail payments, people who haven't been charged, but yet in being detained, some stopped at the airport and the rest. For instance, Mr. Provincial couldn't be allowed to travel outside Honduras, west from the airport straight to Yoko. Detained, had to pay huge sums of money. People think that the procedure being used, yes, in fighting the corruption that the current administration is doing is perhaps not the right path, or maybe illegal.
I'll let the lawyers judge that, whether it's legal or not. But what I do know as a non-legal person is that, and from my own observations around democratic societies, before an Attorney General comes to announce that Baffour Agyeman-Duah has been arrested and blah, 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 that Attorney General, I'm not talking about Ghana, I'm talking about what I know. That Attorney General will have had enough evidence to quickly put me before a court, for a court to put me in custody. I mean, the prosecutor will plead for time, we need to so and so to investigate, so maybe we should keep him away because we're afraid there's a risk of him absconding or something like that. So it seems to me that in those cases, in cases that I know, they do not simply go and arrest you and put you 3-4 days or 1 week before releasing you, and still they are unable to charge you. That is what personally I'm concerned about. Why is it that either Yoko or Attorney General, whoever, can arrest? Why do they go ahead and arrest people? And then in the end, it seems like they don't have a strong case to prosecute. And that is frustrating a lot of people. And even some people are going to the extent of accusing prosecutors or the government generally as just being politically motivated in this. So my preference would have been that take your time. Of course, if you look, these agencies, they work with intelligence agencies. So if Baffour Agyeman-Duah is going to have taken 1 million and he has plans to go to England or to run away, of course they can stop you. That is clear. But I think they need to take their time, get the evidence together, a tight evidence. So as soon as you're arrested, if a few more days are needed to complete whatever they're doing, you are before the judge. And the judge will determine whether you should be put in custody for 1 month or whatever that may be appropriate, rather than arresting people, denying them their civil rights for a number of days or weeks, releasing them, and still no charges leveled. That particular aspect of the fight, I think, needs to be reviewed. It's not proper in my view.
Thank you, Prof. I think Ekwia will come in here with a question for Haruna. Joseph.
With Ed. Hi, Edem Senanu, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, so I just wanted to pick your thoughts on what you make of the government's approach towards fighting corruption. Do you feel like there's a targeted agenda against former appointees of the MPP, and if it's persecution, like some people have been saying?
Well, no. I think I agree with Baffour Agyeman on this issue. I think that we've got to accept that government come in, government go out, especially when during the duration of a specific government, during the tenure, no substantive efforts are seen to be made to hold accountable officials of the same government. You should expect that once a new government comes in, they will put a microscope to what activities have gone on, and there will be the follow-up actions where persons who are seen to have rob the public purse are held accountable. Now, to the extent that all these cases will finally end up in the courts, and the courts will determine the culpability or otherwise of the individuals, I don't see how anyone can claim about witch hunting or targeting. All of that is neither here nor there. If these were cases that let's say you're going to have a media trial or an open trial where citizens are the ones, or is a political, actors who are drawing the conclusions and send you to jail, then perhaps there'll be some merit in this whole argument of, oh, we are being targeted. But to the extent that the information is going to be put together, eventually you end up in a court of competent jurisdiction for the courts to look at what issues have been raised. Are these factual? Does the evidence reach to the point where there's been a breach of law, and therefore should these persons therefore face the rigors of the law and be sanctioned? I don't see how anyone should be complaining about targeting. In my view, we should anticipate and embrace this, that each government comes in, goes out. The next government that will come in is going to put a microscope to your activities and fish out any actions that seem to have been done against the laws of the country. I don't see any targeting. I don't see any witch hunting. I think even if those things come up, the courts of our country should be able to deal with it.
Okay, so ending on the note of belief in our justice system. Now let's move on to the much talked about Galamsey issue. Just to pick your thoughts on the fight that the government has waged so far and your thoughts on that.
It's a mixed feeling. I really would have preferred that the president declared a state of emergency I think that we are in a crisis situation. I mean, I was one of the few people together with Martin Pebu and whatnot, who about 2.5, 3 years ago went to ask CID what was happening when Akonta went to the forests, and both the minister and the commission said that shouldn't happen. And we were told that no Ghanaian had filed a report. We went back the next week, filed a report on behalf of the people of Ghana, 2-3 years, nothing. Even then, we thought it was a crisis situation. Now we have all the data showing how health is being affected, how water bodies, vegetables, food. At this point, honestly, my preference would have been that we called it a state of emergency. We deployed the army. We took whatever steps. I've been told that we have about 3 million Ghanaians engaged in that economy, and it's a difficult one to manage. Yes. In my view, if we don't deal with this comprehensively at this stage, I know some efforts has been done. I hear some forests have now, been curtailed off. But the data at the moment and the progress doesn't give us the comfort of feeling that this issue is being dealt with speedily and comprehensively to the extent that we see, we can say in a year or two, would have dealt with it completely. And there's always the suspicion of the involvement of the political class and what they may be doing. So it's a mixed bag for me. It's one of the low points. I think we can do much better. And I pray that the president will find a way to ensure that the data, there must be indicators, whether it's on the water turbidity, the levels of mercury, the number of persons being affected by whatever chemicals, the forest restoration. I think we need indicators that are regularly provided. In the same way that we are having the monthly, updates, some data, especially on this, will be very useful so that we all are carried along and see if there is progress being made.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyway, so Haruna, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah. So the President Mahama's regime have waged a fight against illegal mining, particularly at the point where your own regional chairman is standing prosecution. Do you think we are succeeding as a nation, the war against illegal mining? Haruna, are you there?
I would like to touch the corruption bit. Your friend is the national organizer. He's also been accused and standing trial. Why not using my regional chairman? With that, I want to go to the corruption issue before I come. The biggest corruption fighting institution in Ghana is the Ghana Audit Service. Today, the Ghana Audit Service is being relegated to the background. The budget lines for the Ghana Audit Service is being put aside. The remunerations and other budget lines that have been paid to them in terms of their allowances and what have you. Today, they have been made vulnerable to people to be able to buy their consent. Because if you make him poor, you make the Auditor General poor, you suffocate the Auditor General, then you don't expect any outcome from that. If you also ask me whether President Mahama is committed to fighting corruption, how many cases has they discontinued by filing nulli prosequi? Seven critical cases. The Sagalemi case, the Bank of Ghana, the now Bank of Ghana boss who was the deputy, the now finance minister who is serving as finance minister today. You also go and check the Senate cases. 7 prominent cases they have discontinued, which were before competent courts of the jurisdiction, for which we were chasing them for causing financial loss to the state. Then this government has.
I don't know. For the sake of time, can we come back to
them, and they are now persecuting.
Haruna, are you there?
They are persecuting the officers of the former administration.
Haruna Mohammed, are you there? Can you please come back to the issue relating to illegal mining? Can you please bring us back to the illegal mining issue? For the sake of time and our viewers, can we come back
to illegal mining? All right. Okay. So on corruption, the NDC has failed. President Mahama is not committed to corruption.
No, let's come back to the illegal mining issue.
Because of corruption, and we all know the background. Then we go to illegal mining. Today, 10 districts in the central region cannot get water to drink. 10 districts because of illegal mining. The NDC apparatus are there. They are confiscating lands here and there. Even you yourself, who is asking me this question, my good friend, Mustafa Gbande, you said that because your government has come to power, your people are supposed to take over the mining sites and also mine and get money.
Haruna, do you think that the government is doing well, given the fact that your own regional chairman is being prosecuted for invading our forest reserves and destroying same without permit, without licenses?
This is what is breaking down the country. The state of emergency.
It looks like.
So we lost Haruna. We may have to bring him back.
We'll try and get him back. Yeah. But let's come to the studio. We'll come back to this. We'll go back to our panelists and talk to them about some of the issues that have been emanating. But still on Galamsey, let me come to you, Mr. Gbande. So we've seen President Mahama do much, really. The 9 months is also doing their jobs very well with other institutions as well. But what is troubling is that we haven't seen much prosecutions after arrest. So many Chinese nationals who are engaged in illegal mining have been arrested, and also their Ghanaian counterparts, but very little has been done to ensure that justice takes its course, because it's really an illegality. Armed robbers have been stealing, they've been caught, they've been prosecuted, they're in jail. We've not seen much of illegal mining people, being prosecuted. What is the challenge?
Well, for me, I think the politics of Ghana also have to play. But generally, there are various ways to do it. And for now, I think that government have been focused on saving our water bodies and the remaining forest reserves. So I have the records that they have repealed the law that was passed by the previous regime to allow people to mine in the forest reserve. But mind you, that most of these people that they have licenses to mine in the forest reserves were not regulated. And so they have destroyed the forest reserves. And number two, the water bodies that we talk about, if those mining the water bodies have not been stopped, it means that they were going to be destroying further our water bodies. So there's a need to save these water bodies, save the forest reserves. That is why, if you check, President Mahama have ordered for all mining-related activities in the forest reserves to stop. Same in the water bodies, whilst the ministry continue to regularize in terms of those doing the alluvial mining on ladder. So I think that by and large, it is not just about prosecution. Prosecution is very good. Law enforcement, putting the people in jail. I have also the records that the Ministry of Interior, led by Honorable Mohammed, have been, extraditing some of these people, deporting them, taking them out of the country to ensure that they don't come back to continue the bad things they were doing. Some of these foreigners come into the country.
So, Mustafa, I don't mean to interrupt, but really, the issue about, yes, the president is ensuring that water bodies are being kept clean and all that, mining lands are to be reclaimed and whatnot. It's good. But then, for those that are perpetrating this illegality, who are arrested, I mean hundreds of them, and we haven't seen anyone being prosecuted, are you saying that we should go easy on that?
No. It's not
very briefly, so that we consider your co-hosting with me.
A straightforward matter to prosecute.
But what's the delay, really? I mean, so many people have been arrested.
To prosecute somebody who have been allegedly involved in illegal mining activities, you first of all have to establish where the person was perpetrating this act. Most often, they are on somebody's concession. You would have to investigate on ownership of these concessions, or who did the government, permit to mine.
Do we know their status as we speak?
I think the last time I checked, the Attorney General was reviewing most of these files. It's a complicated matter, but for me, I am much more persuaded that as we speak, we don't have the scale of destruction in our water bodies and our forest reserve like we used to have. The challenge is when the seat of government become an accomplice in that. and the previous regime led by President Akufo-Addo. In fact, the presidency was actually a conveyor belt and an enabler of these illegal mining activities because they had proprietary benefit. They benefited from the monies that come from these individuals at that level. Where, and if you read the Professor Frimpong-Boateng's report, it captured a lot of President Akufo-Addo's appointees. I think even Honorable Opon Nkrumah was captured in that report. So I've allegedly...
I'll come to you shortly. You take a bite at that. But really, I'll come back to you shortly. Let me speak to Franklin Cudjoe. I'll come back at you. Mr. Franklin Cudjoe, I mean, you've been listening to the conversation so far about Galamsey. Do you also agree with what Mustafa just said about the issue of prosecution, which has become an issue of concern for many, that you're not seeing much prosecution in that aspect? What do you make of the situation?
Indeed, that is quite worrying. I've been told that there have been a number of about 1,000 people have been arrested so far. And the last I heard, they are struggling to prosecute these people. And I'm wondering why they struggle. Is it that they want to wait for tribunals to be set up? I think one of the spokesperson for NIMOS, the media liaison for NIMOS, was saying that from next quarter, they are going to set up these tribunals and then they'll start prosecuting people. Maybe, well, we have to wait. But it beggars belief, really. And by the way, who are being arrested? It's also very important. We want the kingpins to be arrested. That's what we want. They'll collect a few hungry boys and then just ban them somewhere. I don't think that's what we want to hear. And I think it's beginning to look like this an organized crime. I mean, seriously speaking, it appears to me Galamsey has become a very organized crime. State actors are participating in it. Because how so? I mean, NIMOS complains that, look, we went here, the next day we left, the people have come back. Who is giving all that intel, right? I don't care whether they're Chinese or whatever, but who is giving that intel? And who is actually activating or encouraging these things to happen? I strongly believe state actors are involved, just as it was in the last administration. And I don't think we are winning the fight, unfortunately. I mean, NIMOS now says they want to be permanent, they want to station themselves permanently at wherever they find all these illegals. Maybe that's what they need to do. But seriously speaking, I think if President Mahama is not able to solve Galamsey, then clearly speaking, he would have a lot of questions to answer, and they need to be a blot on his legacy.
Right.
But seriously, sorry, go ahead.
Candy land.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that it is beginning to look like one of the, for lack of a better term, the black sheep in his administration already. The other ones I like to talk about, but it's not as grievous as this Galamsey thing, and it's really, really getting worrying and annoying.
What would you like to see happen in 2026 with the fight against Galamsey?
Well, it will be a total fight. Beyond NIMOS saying that they want to be established or permanently establish themselves wherever this is happening. We want the state to take a direct role. You know, this whole thing about the this state of emergency thing. I think we are we've downplayed it badly enough, and I think it's about time we actually do that. Because if NIMOS goes to point A, and NIMOS come to say that we left point A and point B, people are still back there, and what are you doing? It's like recently when my good friend OSP and I were talking Ghana, it's like Ajumajan, which means why you go here, the next day somebody goes and messes the place up, and then what are you really doing? So look, the next year we want real action, and we want it done properly. We know some of the actors involved, and we've been talking about this ad infinitum. I think it's pretty unknown. We want the state to take a direct role to stem this this very bad growth of democracy.
Right, thank you, Franklin. Ekria, let me come to you in the studio. Still on Galamsey, really, I'd also like to ask you, during your era, or let me just say during the Akufo-Addo administration, he put his presidency on the line, nothing was done. In fact, not much was achieved. I wouldn't say, it would be unfair to say nothing was done. He also, tried the same, procedure security men, the military taking over.
I can tell you, they've not done anything differently.
Exactly my point. Not much of a difference. We are Ghanaians are hoping to see that this Galamsey is kept, really, so that our water bodies can be protected and our foods can be safe to eat, and even certain ailment diseases, non-communicable diseases now in such areas will be, reduced. But nothing much is done. So what would be the advice you will give to the current administration to be done differently to see such results?
I've actually sat around this table and given advice countless times. I think I'm going to begin to send the government a bill because, we had we had dealt with this problem for a long time, learnt a lot of lessons. We did a lot, learnt a lot of lessons, and so we had come up with a better solution for it. But unfortunately, we weren't given the nod, and my good friend Mustafa here and his 34 group are now in government, and they can't seem to find make heads or tails of the matter. Just sitting here, and you see, the problem for me is not only the involvement of state actors, but that makes it very difficult. And I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that is one of the main reasons why the prosecutions are going nowhere. Because today they go and arrest, the next day call comes from above, they are released, some of them are tipped off. Let me just give you a brief, news cards I've gathered on this Galamsey. The first is the director of NIMOS operations was attacked by Galamsey tags, led by NDC MP Collins Dauda. Some NDC national officials and some chiefs are complicit in Galamsey. This is Emmanuel Kutin, Executive Director of Africa Center of Security. Then we have the update. This is from your own Erastus. Update on Tano and Nyem forest invasion. NDC activists leading groups still mine illegally in the forest reserve as of today. In fact, I saw a post by Erasmus where national security operatives of this current government are taking over a legitimate mine in such a Rambo style to take it over and mine and into their pockets, because I don't see how that is going into the consolidated fund. And it goes on and on with the Professor Nanama Brown-Kluche also saying that heavily built men in CID vests were working with illegal miners at the site.
What lessons did you learn that they can do? This is
endemic. You see, the problem is you cannot, something as lucrative as Galamsey, that has always been my position. You cannot put men with guns there and expect to see results. You have to tackle it from a very multifactorial point of view. You have to make sure that you cannot stop them from mining the gold. You just have to make sure that you limit as much as possible the effects of the mining on our environments. Basically, that's the forest reserves and our water, etc. You help them do it in a sustainable manner so that it doesn't, destroy what we have. So that is where I was hoping to see more effort. And more effort in this, the common user facilities that we had planned to set up. We had brought in about 100 mercury-free catcher machines. I have to use this opportunity to ask Mustafa, where are those machines? Are they in the field? Are they being used? All of these would have, mitigated some of the effects on the environment. Because let's face it, Mamiesi, you go there, this is a young man, a security officer, earning maybe something less than 10,000 cedis. You go there and they open $20,000. Take this and pretend like you didn't see anything. That's a very, you're asking a lot of the people.
And which brings me to this very important question about, your own government, Professor, did this report indicting people in your own government. How come those who have been who were indicted in that report weren't brought to justice?
So, firstly, it was a report, and they say people that were indicted. A lot of these, my brothers and sisters in the NDC quote the reports, but I can tell you as a matter of fact, they've never read it in totality. Because if they have, it indicts them more than it indicts the MP.
No, but people in your administration were indicted.
So for an example, he states it categorically that there are more NDC people involved in illegal mining than anywhere. It is written there, black and white.
Doesn't negate the fact that NPP persons were still.
So who were those indicted?
So why didn't President Akufo-Addo then ensure that some justice was done, some example was set, so that it doesn't continue?
You see, there are allegations, and then there are ways you have to prove those allegations to be able to make a case.
Oh.
So what are you, like, you need to give me specifics. You see, Mustafa was trying to be mischievous by bringing in my very good boss. But even his mention in that report was not to say involvement in Galamsey. His name was mentioned, but it wasn't to say that he was involved. A lot of names were mentioned for different things. There was even a link to the unfortunate passing of Major Mahama, and how that apparently that MOU was even signed under the first John Mahama presidency. So you see, if you read the report and you want to take it in totality, there are lots of things that we can take out of there. But to me, I think that time is past. Now it's the NDC that is in government. Now it is the NDC that is in government. We are looking at them to be able to do something about it. You know, I was hoping to be able to have had the government spokesperson today, because I had a few questions.
Unable to join us.
Yes, a few questions to ask him. You know, he said that the government has about 50,000 security men and on. I think it was in the same studio here where he said, with all of that, any serious president can end this in 2 weeks. The Minister of Communication also said that. In fact, the president is on record to have said that he will use AI to stop Galamsey. We haven't seen any of that. Well, so were they just, you know, telling us sweet somethings? Was it the situation of when a man is chasing you, telling you all the sweet things, when you are got and you are stuck at home and not even KFC is being provided? I mean, when it comes to Galamsey, it looks like that's what the NDC government has done to the people.
Well, away from Galamsey, I want to hear from you. How is Dr. Bawumia's campaign going? One day you wanted to respond to Ikea then?
No, today he shouldn't respond. He's had.
Well, I think that
he's had a field day.
It's good for the MPP to speak this way. It's very good. But I also think that my understanding in terms of the industry of mining is that her government, led by President Akufo-Addo, actually went to Parliament and passed a law. The law that allows people to mine in our forest reserves. His ministers had a responsibility to ensure that they manage persons who were licensed to go and mine within these forest reserves. Do you think that they have effectively managed them? And on one breath, should the government decide to take on those ministers for having failed on their jobs, having allowed people, you know, Chinese nationals, their own party executives, ministers, you know, mining within our forest reserves without following the due process, the regimes that were put in place, i.e. post-mining reclamation, afforesting the place and making sure that the ecology is replaced or repaired. All of these things were not done, and a new government comes in place, and the MPP says, oh, okay, these pits that you see created under our regime has suddenly metamorphosed to have been created by the new regime. Do you think that if tomorrow the government decides to go after these ministers, the MPP will not come here to say it's witch hunting? And on the other hand, for me, I am happy because as we speak today, visibly, in terms of advocacy, in terms of even the media engaging itself to make sure we publicly educate the Ghanaian people, we have been able to minimize the scale of pollution in our water bodies. For me, today, there's that consciousness, that fear, dismantling of, you know, set up Galamsey sites in forest reserves and around water bodies. And we should applaud the government for it.
All right.
You know, we cannot, at all times, I believe that we can do better. The next phase we should go is to actually get communities investigating on persons who have mined in certain areas and left the pits. These people can be prosecuted. And if the government, you know, because most of these people are within the MPP.
Okay, so fine. Both of you,
both
of you keep coming to. We're moving on from there.
I was told Dr. Bawumia has a site in.
Don't, please. We cannot substantiate that.
Then President Mahama is also minding.
Please, you have to take that back if you can't substantiate that.
Okay, well, that's why.
So, how is Dr. Bawumia's campaign going?
So far, so good.
Chairman of club 38.
Hey, 34 team. And you see, they also got 34%.
Let's do quickly, so we go to our panel.
You know, if they are now, Mustafa is sitting here as a member of government.
Okay, I don't go back.
After the 34%.
Okay, I don't go back.
Anything is possible.
You're co-hosting with me.
No problem.
Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes.
So
that was on a lighter note. It's been very good.
Okay.
Let me just take this opportunity to say thank you to all the delegates, especially those in Greater Accra, those we engaged in the 4 northern regions. That's Upper East, Upper West, Northeast, and Savannah. And in Greater Accra, the reception has truly been awesome. I don't know if you won't believe this, Mamiesi, but in almost every constituency in Greater Accra that the campaign has touched down at, we have had an overwhelming number of endorsements. And what makes it very interesting is that we are the last group to come by. So they've essentially waited. And this is not just maybe the member of parliament and the MCE. These are electoral area coordinators, as I always say. These are the grassroots trying to make a very bold statement that the people going around claiming, making noise that they are the grassroots representatives, they want to come out boldly and show Ghanaians and indeed His Excellency Dr. Bawumia that they are strongly behind him. Almost everywhere, we have about 90% endorsements of the electoral area coordinators. And so let me use this opportunity to say a big thank you to them.
To all of them.
We'll continue to engage them on Saturday.
All right.
And we would continue, we'll go on back to the northern region, and we'll wrap up our campaign in Ashanti region. And I'm very confident that come 31st January, I mean, after I come here, I will be speaking for the flag bearer of the New Patriotic
we live to see that day, don't we? It's just a month away. So we'll get to see.
Only a few days. It will come quick.
It will come very quick. Yeah. Well, let's go back to our panelists now. And right now, we want to know what's happening in Parliament, how Parliament has fared, especially the majority. And I'll start with you, Edem Senanu. What has been your ratings of Parliament so far?
Well, I think that except for the sudden emotional suggestion that we should scrap the office of the special prosecutor, Parliament appears to have transacted this business as seriously as would have expected. I think that the Speaker, together with the leadership on both sides, have tried to, as it were, deal with the important legislative needs of the country. By and large, I mean, when issues have come up, they've been the usual partisan discussions here and there, but they have made progress. And to that extent, I think that Parliament has also played its role as one of the key branches of government in delivering what this nation needs and its citizens expect. And we are looking forward to, hopefully, that much more attention will be paid to the kind of laws that move us even further as we enter 2026.
Franklin, what do you make of Parliament's performance so far, especially the majority?
I think they've held their own. It feels so. I think I don't know whether the word is over. I'm trying to use a particular adjective, but let me just drop that. I think the majority has held its own, except, of course, as my good friend Senanu says. It looks as if they were becoming a bit more maybe the majority status was getting into their heads. This attempt to, railroad the officials, the OSP's office. And I felt that was too low. That was really, anyway, it was not the entire majority, but I'm pretty sure if the majority leader and the gentleman who sponsored the bill, the Frimpong, and these were leadership in majority, right? If they had gone ahead to have their way, it would have been one of the most difficult, probably one of the most illiberal ways of using majoritarian advantage in Parliament. On the other hand, I think the minority, they still have a lot to learn. Maybe they are the weight of the fact that the numbers are small. But it looks to me that until recently, they were not that coherent when it comes to basically attacking, not necessarily attacking, but responding to government projects, programs, and policies. It appears to me that There's a few of them really get a whole hand, how do I call it? There's a few of them actually appreciate what is really happening. But because some of them also have to speak, then there's a lot of propaganda. I feel strongly that they need to take a good stock and then probably come back to the drawing table and then maybe they'll get things right. One thing I should say though is that I was really I didn't really like the way the minority leader was treated with this whole idea of he being was it referred to the Privileges Committee? Apparently because they said he represented ECOWAS. Yeah. I think it is very wrong, and I appeal to the Speaker of Parliament. I've written to him already, and I think they should rescind that decision immediately. But the gentleman, Apenyo, look, like him or not, I think Apenyo has done something really useful for Parliament in that regard. I mean, if you follow his tenure carefully, and by the way, his tenure runs out up until 2028. People don't know that. And ECOWAS itself actually wrote and basically jettisoned the whole decision to refer to the Privileges Committee. And I think on that score, I think opinion ought to be, they should stop that whole process and then give him the due regard. This gentleman, through his own effort, has championed key initiatives on regional security, trade issues, energy. In fact, I recall when he was, during his tenure, he engaged a lot of civil society. We talked, we did quite a lot with him regionally as well. Not because he talked to us, but I think he not beyond IMANI, he's spoken to as many other CSOs as well. And I think it is unfortunate that he's being taken through the clinic. There's a blot on our democracy, and I think that the earlier we stop that whole thing I call witch hunt, the better it will be for us. But this gentleman, you brought this, what's it called? It's never happened before, by the way. You realize that he managed to bring the whole ECOWAS meetings to minimum, right?
Yes, the Western region.
And I think he's protected Ghana in such a way that with the least we can do is to disgrace him with this money. So I think that should stop immediately, and then maybe we can have better means of addressing our grievances.
Right, thank you so much, Franklin and Senanu, on this. And very, very briefly, Professor Baffour Agyeman-Duah, we have about a minute to go. So what do you also say about this? Unfortunately, we lost Professor Baffour Agyeman-Duah coming to the studio. Let me take your views on Parliament briefly before we go.
I'll try to be very brief. I think the government should have spoken first anyway. There's not much to say.
Government, let's hear you.
Well, for me, I think that progressively, it's been a good time, a good first 1 year in government. The numbers are well balanced in terms of reflecting the mood of the country. Because generally, Ghanaians envisaged that they needed these numbers in Parliament to ensure that the proper resetting really occurs, so that we don't just get constrained by the fact that the government will have difficulties with the numbers. It also means that Ghanaians have tested the government so we don't abuse the power we have just because we have absolute majority. And in the last 1 year, you've seen the restraint by the executive not to abuse the numbers that we have in Parliament. In terms of the sides of the aisle, I think, politically, each side is doing well and we must commend them. It's not easy to be a parliamentarian, managing your constituency and also managing the business of the... Gradually, the MPP will learn, the MPP side will learn to come to the reality that they are just a minute number and reflective of what they got in the 2024 general election.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
38%. So when they appreciate the numbers they have, it would humble them and it also give them a room to perform reasonably to the people of Ghana. So far, I don't think that they are quitting themselves to a proper minority that will give the better opposition that Ghanaians expect, from an opposition.
Okay, I'll hold on to your thought. I'll come back to you, so you give it. You will not forget.
Is Haruna still there?
Okay, so let me hear from you.
No, I want to be the last.
You come. Where we go? We are going to something else.
See, now, today is the last day of 2025.
Yes.
It's a beautiful day, isn't it? President Mahama is back. Even after losing.
He actually visited President
in 2016 with 34%. What this means is that anything is possible. Let me move on to Parliament.
Please, let's
I think only one thing has been made absolutely clear by the situation in Parliament is that it's not, you don't need plenty people, you know. Sometimes it's just noise. Because I am pretty sure all Ghanaians will agree with me that the minority, even with their, as he wants to put it, minute number, have been able to discipline and hold the majority accountable, as is their mandate. To a point where the majority leader was able to get up and complain about bullying. I don't know if you remember that time. The 180-something people were complaining that they were being bullied by 87 people. That's what shows you then the capability and the formidability of the members of parliament. I would have to agree with Mustafa only on one thing, is that it's not an easy job, you know, managing your constituency and all of that. And now, especially with their very small numbers, I would have to say a big kudos to the minority side and Merry Christmas to the majority side. But kudos to the minority side because they've done us proud.
They've done a yeoman's job for you.
They've done a yeoman's job for the elephant family. Right. We're very proud of them and we continue to stand by them. Just to borrow on the words of Franklin, because I also thought the treatment of the minority leader was completely uncalled for, especially in the scheme of things. That was, you know, a clear example of sort of an overreach, you know, them just trying to flex their muscles because they thought they had the numbers. But indeed, I think Ghanaians are watching and seeing how they are not doing anything much with the numbers they have. They are passing bills in the middle of the night that are costing the country millions of dollars. You remember the gold board bill was historically passed in the middle of the night. You know, they do a lot of those things because they think they have the numbers and they can get away with it. But when it comes to an open debate, it's quite obvious that the mighty 88 always floor them, isn't it?
Thank you, Akia. Well, let's move to the Volta region.
Where's President Akufo-Addo?
Why do you want to know where President
President
Akufo-Addo is?
Mahama extended a very beautiful gesture yesterday. Tried to visit all living.
Why is that of concern to you? The man is no longer in government.
The fascination that the NDC has
we'll come to
celebrate the beautiful.
We'll come to that. I have to go to the Volta region. You too. We are co-hosting, please. The Volta Regional Security Council, in consultation with the Ministry of Interior, has ordered the temporary closure of the whole central mosque for 2 weeks after a gun attack injured about 11 people. The directive takes effect from Thursday, January 1, 2026, amid heightened security concerns and a leadership dispute within the whole Muslim community. RESEC has also declared the mosque and its surroundings a crime scene to enable investigations into tensions arising from rival claims or sides to the position of regional chief imam. Now, let's bring you details of the statement from RESEC, and the statement says that the Volta Regional Security Council, in close consultation with the Ministry of Interior, mandates the temporary closure of the whole central mosque for a duration of 2 weeks, commencing Thursday, January 1. Additionally, the location and the dispute is declared a crime scene to facilitate further investigation until a permanent solution is achieved concerning the ongoing impasse. Now, this directive has been deemed essential following an urgent meeting convened by the Volta Regional Security Council on Monday, 29th December 2025, to address troubling developments within the Muslim community. The decision has also been taken solely in the interest of peace, unity, and the long-term stability of the Muslim community in whole. The temporary closure will provide a calm and neutral environment to facilitate mediation efforts aimed at resolving ongoing disputes and restoring harmony among all parties involved. Now, RESEC believes that peaceful dialogue is the most powerful tool for resolving differences, and this period will be used to engage all stakeholders constructively to achieve a lasting and amicable solution. And on the line with us is James Gunu. Let's get more from him right now on Zoom. He's the regional minister there. Mr. Gunu, we're grateful for your time here on the poll. So currently, you've taken these decisions. How is it being deployed?
Thank you very much. The decision takes effect from tomorrow, 1st January 2026. And as you rightly read, this is in the interest of peace. When we met as Regional Security Council on Monday, we engaged the two leaders who are the center of this whole dispute, Alhaji Muniru Ali Mohammed and Alhaji Alpha Anas Hamidu. We engaged them thoroughly, and we realized that there is a need for further engagement. So, in consultation with the Ministry of Interior, RESEC took the decision to close down the whole central mosque temporarily for 2 weeks. The area is currently declared as a crime scene. Police investigation is ongoing. We have also tasked the Regional Peace Council to do the mediation and bring the two personalities to a table and ensure they smoke the peace pipe and urge their followers to follow suit. We are also in touch with the office of His Eminence, the National Chief Imam, to ensure that there is absolute peace and harmony within the whole Zongo. So once a compromise is reached and all the parties agree that yes, this is the way to go, the Regional Security Council has no problem at all in reopening the whole central mosque.
You believe this 2 weeks affords you enough time to finish up with your investigations? What then happened after those 2 weeks are up and there's still issues to be resolved?
We have given ourselves 2 weeks to do this, and we hope that at the end of the 2 weeks, we'll reach a makeable solution. If no solution is reached, definitely the RESEC will meet again and take a decision that will be in the best interest of the Muslim community in whole.
What seems to be the difficulty between these two sides? What's the difficulty in not reaching some form of agreement so peace can prevail?
In fact, it's about leadership. Who becomes the regional chief imam. It's one of the issues that I inherited. Is a legacy issues. My predecessor also did some work on this in the past, where Alhaji Muniru Ali was introduced to him as the regional chief imam. Then there was an arrangement for the national chief imam to visit the area and then declare or endorse Alhaji Muniru Ali. That did not take place. And when I assumed office as a regional minister, the issue persisted. And every now and then, you see the two personalities claiming to be the regional chief imam. I also wrote a letter to His Eminence, the national chief imam, on the 29th of April this year, for the national chief imam to help us resolve the matter. On the 1st of November this year, His Eminence, the national chief imam, visited Ho, following the request that I made. Then he declared Alhaji Muniru Ali Mohammed as the regional chief imam. This did not go well with the other faction, and we tried to contain the situation, tell them to remain calm. If you disagree with the decision of the national chief imam, you don't need to take the law into your own hands to cause violence. We did that up to a point, and then the Alhaji Ali Muniru Mohammed faction also feels that since he has been declared the regional chief imam, he is the one who is supposed to lead prayers at the central mosque. However, we realize that going there, with force can create a problem. So we told them to hold on and not to go there. They gave us a letter to that effect.
Right.
Only for us to see this incident happening on the 26th of this month, when some people went there to start changing locks at the mosque and started shooting in the area. About 14 people were arrested and currently on bail. The police are investigating the matter. Some 12 people or 11 were injured. They've been treated and discharged.
Right. Okay. So
and
they've been
following from.
Thank you so much, James Gunu, Volta Regional Minister, giving us an update on that situation there in the Volta region. Let me come back to the studio. And we are ending the show with my guests. Today is the 1st December. How are you spending tonight? Are you going to church, any of you, or you're just going home to sleep?
I'm going to church. Fellowship.
Where do you go to church?
Action Chapel International.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
We're going to pray for... We are going
yeah,
to
you sound very mischievous with that.
Interesting. No, but you see, last day of the year, I'm toning down the mischief.
Well, are you also going to church, okay?
Yes. I think I will probably...
Oh, you all go to church?
Yes.
All right, let's wrap up the show.
A very good year. Very, very, very fulfilling one.
Because Ghanaians are resilient.
A couple of former appointees would obviously be pursued.
Okay.
Why would you pursue? What happened to the? Why the Nolly?
Please, today. Wait. Today.
Questions.
No. In fact, we've ended it. We have ended. Our time is up. Mustafa and Ekia, please sign out and let's go, please. We are ending the show.
Why did you let all your people off the hook?
Okay, sign out and Mustafa follows, then we go.
Okay.
Like how you've been watching us.
Where is President Akufo-Addo?
You guys, just watch your camera.
Okay, so from all of us in the studio here, it's been a pleasure being with you today. Let's just sign out earlier by saying a Happy New Year. I know we're a few hours away
from that.
Happy New Year till we meet again soon, and may the Lord be with all of us.
Mustafa.
Well, I also wish everybody Happy New Year, including the MPP. We wish them well in their January.
You're signing out to the viewers, so you have to watch it.
We hope that it will end in peace, but we have the responsibility to ensure that we protect even them, so it will be peaceful. I know Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's camp is trying to rig the election.
All right, thank you very much. We're grateful to our viewers for staying with us on this edition of The Pulse. And we're grateful. Ekia made the show. Thank you very much. So that's how we end this edition of The Pulse. Happy New Year in advance to all our viewers. Thank you for sticking with us in 2025.